Do you know a term used for someone who is inexpensive to buy drinks for on a date is actually a name for a gene? Yes, I'm talking about cheap date. Scientists again have a sense of humor, right? So this gene is actually important because it's responsible for alcohol sensitivity and how we respond to alcohol. Basically, the dopamine transports level and the cyclic AMP pathways is responsible how we adapt to alcohol when it's introduced in our system, and well, more precisely the neural circuit pathways. So how did they actually come to know about this, right? Well, they used fruit flies again. So fruit flies is interesting because they actually made the flies drunk. Yes. How did they do that, right? Do they have small shot glasses, bottoms up, or what? Well, they used an in-barometer, which is a long glass tube with different angular metal baffles. So the idea is that when the ethanol vapors or alcohol is introduced from the top, along with the flies, which have two groups, the wild type, which does not have a cheap date mutant, and the cheap date mutants, which are proposed to be sensitive to alcohol and lose postural conformity. So postural conformity is basically the ability of them to hold on or to have a grip and not fall down. But upon intoxication, they would lose this postural conformity and fall down, tumble down, and get eluted out of that glass tube. So based on the number of if there are more normal flies or more mutant flies, and also their timing as to when they're falling, the researchers could understand various behavioral matrices like naive alcohol sensitivity, and if they even have a preference for ethanol food source. And yeah, that's how it was named. The scientists named it. So you would be like, okay, this is funny for a bug, but what does it have to do with us? The answer turns out to be almost everything. The dopamine transport levels and cyclic AMP pathways is what determines the alcohol sensitivity. And these molecular pathways are conserved highly throughout the evolution. So the same thing happens in the mice and humans when they are introduced to alcohol. So cheap date is actually a very important focus point that could be studied to understand alcohol usage disorders and basically how alcoholism can have a genetic basis, because with more studies it has been shown that having a substance disorder, most precisely the alcohol use disorder, is actually 60% genetic. So yeah, this is a very important gene when it comes to such behavioral and substance abuse disorders. And naming it cheap date is an interesting choice, right? Well, I do have more genes coming up from the list, the useless list that I made. So yeah, see you then. Bye.